Zoo. But when this list originally popped up, maybe in its slightly earlier forms, but you know, the whole, like, you play all 4 imps, for example, and things like that, you know, there were discussions of, oh yeah, this is to beat the mages because it's arguably too fast. Some of the minions are a bit too big to be easily picked off by the small mage removal. So I'm very interested to see how this performs overall, because like you, I've run into this now and again on ladder, but I've not really seen enough of it to really have a conclusive response that, you know, maybe doesn't initially align as strongly with yours as it plays Hecklefang Hyena, therefore it is bad approach. So we'll see how that pans out as we dive into game number 1.
It's the Knife Ender that I particularly...
You see how much damage Knife Ender does, Sol?
I did tweet a few days ago, step 1 to Hearthstone success, take Knife Ender out of all of your decks, no further steps. And I do pretty much stand by that.
I played that in my Face Hunter list for the longest time, and my win rate was magnificent, I'll have you know. Diving straight in here, though, there are a few questions already, I think. You can start to look at not playing this quest on 1. It's something I touched on yesterday, mainly about Demon Hunter. But I think this list of Warlock exactly has a lot of reasons as to why not, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Good chance this is 1 free damage, because you have to think to yourself, what's the first turn I'm actually going to self-damage myself, right? That's the turn that I need to have the quest in play. If you look at this curve, Viper's going to play a 1-drop on 1, 2-drop on 2. So far, 0 damage. 0 damage missed. Now he's threatening with the Bloodbound Imp attacking next turn. So next turn will likely be the turn he's looking to line up the Demon Seed quest.
In a very similar scenario, if Viper was going second, you might have even seen the same, right? With Coin Imp into then like Demon Seed Tour Guide that turn as well. So it's something you do see a lot, especially with these early minion openings. But already nice and early, Seiko's got that devolving missiles down, reduced a lot of the power because, like I said, that Imp is a 2/5. Although it feels like Mage can kill any singular minion in the game right now, like that is kind of awkward this early in the game, especially with this hand from Seiko.
Yeah, also crucial to now get these devolved minions dead as soon as possible, just so Seiko can mess with the Raise Dead pool as quickly as he possibly can. I think that will be a matter of priority for him as well. Flame Imp's a great draw for Viper, though, having had his initial opening shut down, because he can now take a ton of damage extremely quickly. I know the terms that you talk in when doing these self-damage Warlock decks are extremely strange, but you see immediately, even though he delayed the quest so long, he's already caught back up to 5 out of 6 on the first stage of the quest line.
Yeah, and meanwhile, as we take a glance at Seiko's turn, fairly simple. You have Ice Barrier, it's turn 3, get the Frost spell played and get it done, because unlike in some matchups, I think here, Flurry is going to be very important once Seiko hits at least turn 5, right? Just to have a greater form of control, being able to freeze 2 minions instead of 1 random one, especially on this board.
Yeah, I think Seiko's got this luxury because he had the perfect answer with the devolving missiles early. I think when Bloodbound Imp comes down, you might be very tempted in a lot of situations to just flurry the Bloodbound Imp, because it delays quest completion by so much. It delays Flesh Giant by so much when it's not just attacking and picking up those self-damage effects. But because Seiko is able to remove that with the devolving missiles, he does have the luxury to greed this flurry a lot more.
And it's also nice to just get Ice Barrier down, right? These minions will attack it. That's just going to happen. Viper's playing the Zoo list. So then if he draws the next Ice Barrier in the near future, fantastic, right? Because in a lot of the matchups, you play Ice Barrier and your opponent just doesn't proc it, and then your second one's stranded. So yeah, a little bit of a bonus there. Viper's just going to take some healing just to be able to utilize that mana, get some stuff out of hand, and again, start staring at these 2 Raise Dead and see if he can kind of initiate some kind of good outcome from these Raise Deads, as opposed to getting the little Murloc.
Although I did make the greatest Hearthstone play anyone's ever seen the other day during rehearsals, with deliberately Raise Deading a Blood Imp so I could then shoot it myself. I was in 2 calls at the time, in a Discord group with the other casters practicing, and then also in a rehearsal call with production who was just asking me to speak. So I was just popping off about how great my play was, with having nothing else to talk about. And all the other casters were like, wait, why is he just talking about how brilliant he is? And honestly, I don't know why you're surprised.
Yeah, it was more, I think it was probably more like, oh, he's doing it again.
Here he goes again. Yeah.
Mute. Moving on, though, There are still those two
there we go.
1/1s on the board, but that is a Flesh Giant. And do you put much stock in Viper actually holding on to at least one of these Raised Dead for the chance of getting a renewed Flesh Giant from it?
There's a lot of it depends going on. He's currently 3 out of 7 on second stage of the quest line. So I'm trying to see if like using the Flame Imp and the Raised Dead and playing 0 mana Giant this turn alongside Life Tap and so on, like that aggressively pushes 3 more damage this turn. It progresses the quest line to maybe he can kill with Tamsin and so on later on, but I don't think it pays off enough this turn. The problem is his Raised Dead pool is very diverse at this point, right? That's a lot of minions. Okay, well, that is the draw off the tap. Yeah, that changes everything.
And these are the sort of draws as well where these are the arguments for Flesh Giant, right? Because right now you can see, oh, you just get to play 2 8/8s and other stuff on turn 5. Seems pretty good to me. And it's hard to sort of argue against just playing Flesh Giants when you see turns like this. It's important to note as well, before people start crying out positioning, that Viper is not playing Battleground Battlemaster in this deck. So the reason those Giants are really far away from each other is, of course, you know, any kind of freeze, Cone of Cold being generated, for example, and any kind of stuff like that to just make at least one of them the most likely to attack it can possibly be.
Yeah, and then generated cards, Combustion, Shooting Star, all that kind of stuff as well. It's just the best possible positioning. Maybe not the Flame Imps if we really, really want to nitpick, but the important thing to get right this turn was spreading the Giants, and Viper got that right. Meanwhile...
Yeah, Seiko probably looking for a fire sale at this point, or at least to get something down. If he could fire sale, then the flurry would freeze the 2 Giants that are left over. I think that would put him in a great position. So are you looking at the Springwater for this turn?
I think Springwater is a little tempting. The problem with the fire sale play, which obviously it would be the best play purely defensively, is the questline procs that he's on, because it would involve playing a fire spell first, which would be wasted, because as you could see there from him playing the ice barrier, Frost was all he needed, and he can't flurry first and then fire sale afterwards. Obviously that's ridiculous. But to me, that did still seem like, you know, going digging with Refreshing Springwater might have been his best bet, because this is still infinity damage being left up on the other side.
It is one way to look at it, though. By playing that barrier, he effectively just negates one of the Flesh Giants attacks, so it's not too bad. It's still not great, though. He did get Cone of Cold from the second quest proc Discover, I believe, so he does have something to do next turn if he can just get rid of these annoying minions on board. Viper, though, already got Tamsin locked and loaded, and again, love the positioning, right? It's like the 3 bosses and the puny little bodyguards there.
That's right, yeah. It's almost like you almost want to line this up like chess, right? Like front row, back row. You just have all the big boys in the back, and then you got your pawns up front.
Yep.
All right, Brain Freeze is
kind
of nice. That's not bad, actually, right? You can ping Cone of Cold on one side to lock out 2, and then Brain Freeze on the other side to lock out all of the important minions. We can see that would still leave him dead, I think, to Knife Bender, which, you know, all things considered, credit where it's due. Well, this is insane this turn, Knife Bender, to follow all of this up.
Yeah. Flurry doesn't re-hit the same target, right, if there's other empty targets?
Correct, yeah.
What to do? What to do?
You want to go all the way in and like flurry 2 1/1s? Is that what you're saying?
Just take nothing.
Mm-hmm. Try 3 frost spells out of your hand at that point, though. Like, what's your plan for winning the game? I guess don't have one. I'm losing is a valid answer, but
yeah, but he's on Dawn Grasp now, and he's just cast his frost.
Ah, fair.
Yeah. He's on the level 3, isn't he?
That's right.
Okay, he's going to hold the flurry and say, you know what, I'll take 2. You might take more than 2.
Yeah, it's going to be 8 damage with Knife Bender. It's going to be 2 with the Tour Guides. Even if the Tour Guides weren't able to attack, you can see the life tap ends up changing dealing the last 2 damage, so the flurry wouldn't have ended up changing anything in the end. So that is a fantastic showing, it has to be said. I will eat my humble pie quite gladly with a dollop of cream on top. That was a great showing for the Aggro Zoo version that Viper is running, and a great showing for Knife Bender specifically as well.
Yeah, and although Knife Bender, of course, a tricky card to get the best use out of, it is difficult to turn down what's effectively, an 8 damage fireball in this kind of deck, right? Like, it is a lot of damage compacted into one single card. And I think Viper, of course, got fortunate with getting those back-to-back Giants nice and early, because otherwise the rest of the game you can see Knife Bender was stuck in his hand all game, right? And that's definitely the drawback of that card, right? Is if you draw it early, you kind of just, you deal some self-damage, but it's still clunky. It's 4 mana on a 3/4 when we've seen what his turn 5 look like with multiple minions plus Giants and everything. So there are pros and cons, but it has paid off so far for Viper, and it was just too fast. Seiko even had the Devolving Missiles early to slow it down just a little bit. He had a certain level of freezes, ice barriers, and it just wasn't enough. But we're going to jump from one mage to the other now, Sartle, as we check out Viper's mage list. And again, if I have to say I like a list, I have been playing the Devolving one more recently just to get more up to speed on the list. But this is one I guess enjoy more than the others, which isn't to say I really enjoy them at all, but you know what I mean. The Gadget Zen with the Mana Biscuit combo with just cycling tons of cards with those basically infinite ignites is a pretty incredible thing to see at the end game.
Yeah, it was a very weird day 1, day 2 of the expansion, because it really felt like Auctioneer was back with a vengeance, right? Like, Dog had built Warlock, but he was using an Auctioneer-based version with Armor Vendor and a bunch of healing, and then just using like an Auctioneer OTK to do all the damage at the end of the game and super fatigue yourself to do that damage with Tamsin. Miracle Rogue, obviously, with the Garots then became a thing with Gadgets and Auctioneer, and Mages were playing Auctioneer as well. So it really felt like we were about to have this insane Auctioneer meta out of nowhere. And then one by one, all those decks kind of melted away, and even Mage, it seems like Auctioneer is the less popular version now.
Well, do you want me to say what happened and put the nail in the coffin for Auctioneer? Quest Hunters started trying to play it, and then it all went downhill from there. It was ruined. We check it out though. Seiko's Paladin is going to queue now, which is this hand buff Paladin. And again, the players could resubmit very recently, as early as yesterday morning for the weekend, which is very short to the start time as we used to. But here, Seiko's chosen to keep hold of, maybe I'm going to call this an older version of Paladin, which sounds ridiculous, but a lot of Paladins now are playing more of a stealth package with the huge buffs to go with some kind of sort of semi-OTK variant. But Seiko's sticking with hand buff, and honestly, I think now as the meta continues to develop, there is something to be said for if you can get those big beefy minions, there aren't that many decks that can even deal with them, because decks are being more honed to take down the combo decks that are sort of plaguing the ladder right now.
Yeah, very true. I think it's strange to me to see. I think Paladin is the class that's kind of evolved the most over the last few days, right? You're talking about, a few innovations in Mage, but yeah, stealth package, secret package even coming into Paladins now as well. The amount of times I've had to play around Oh My Yogg on turn 1 in second while playing Quest Warlock in the recent days. So it is a little bit surprising to see what, look like these kind of outdated lists from a few of our players with Paladin, but that's not to say that they just haven't assessed the new versions. There's a lot of reasons why you would see the new versions and stick with this one. Firstly, you might think this is better overall, just generically, just think it's a better deck. You don't believe in the stealth package or the secret package. Secondly, you might just test it and say particular matchups, I want this version over the other version. And thirdly, you're just like, well, I don't really, even though I know this deck exists, I don't have time to get 50 games of it under my belt, so I don't feel comfortable with it. So I'm going to stick with the version that I know and like.
And fourthly, you might just draw like this, because this opening is insane. Not only is the dual kit locked, loaded, ready to go for turn 1, there's Banana Man on the far left. There's Robes of Protection, which again, if you're a long-time Seiko fan, you might think, oh, he's done it again, playing one Robe of Protection. No, this is just a good card right now, and a card a lot of these more sort of minion-based, mid-rangey-ish decks are playing with, because this just allows your opponent almost zero interaction with your board if you can land it in a good state. And against especially the likes of Quest Mage and Warlock in a lot of instances, there are very few cards that deal with a robe board if they're wide enough.
That's a Banana Man into Banana Man start for Seiko. That is a Joe Bluth double dip free Bluth banana split right there. That is an insane start. Not only does it have the robes of protection, everything that Raven was just talking about, but it's also going to be huge. So there's no way it's even going to get caught up in any random AoE or anything that gets generated from Viper. This is a disgusting start from Seiko.
Yep, most importantly, it will be, I think, already one above a fire sale with, say, a lab partner, right? Which is generally the AoE you expect as a maximum in the early game from Mage. So yeah, very exciting stuff. I am interested to see if he goes robes first, because it's also weird to like, well, no, you play robes once you've got a board, right, but how do you stick a board if you don't have robes on it? So I think I like the robes first, even before the Banana Man.
Do you really?
I think so. Because it's big enough, right? Like, get it down now.
It's huge. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Get it down now. Next turn, there's Banana and Argent... I need to stop calling it Banana because people are going to get confused. Banner Man, the 3-drop, and Argent Squire for the turn after. Then there's one as Divine Shield. I think he needs to land the robes now, because if he waits, well, the Banner Man can get killed off. The Argent Squire can be hit and frozen and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I think he needs to go now.
Really? It's not too heavy.
Oh, well,
this is certainly my.
What do I know?
This is certainly my instinct. Yeah, like my initial instinct was to do this into Robe's Divine Shield, and then you can just go more Divine Shield the next turn, and then High Lord the turn after that, right? But yes, just in case anyone didn't also see my tweet, I did genuinely think this card was called Banana Man the first 2 or 3 times I read it. And I just didn't think twice about it because it made perfect sense, right? Like, he gives a banana to your whole hand. It's just a better name. So come at me. That's what I'm calling it.
It just doesn't make perfect sense, does it? Soldier with a big banner. It's like, oh, there must be... Oh, wait, the banner's got yellow on it. It must be a banana banner.
You're just expressing your ignorance of military history, right? You know how, like, when you play sports, there's like a water boy that's like handing out water bottles to everyone.
Yeah.
There you are on a battlefield. You have a banana man. They just go around. Everyone needs a bit of potassium. They just go around and feed everyone bananas.
It's a double whammy, isn't it? Because you eat the banana, then throw the skin towards your opponent. They slip on it.
See?
Oh, there you go.
See? You are feigning ignorance. You do actually know military history. Well done.
I believe it was in Sun Tzu, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that one of the strategies in there? First of all, though, we can see, I guess, the punish, I'm going to very loosely call it for this play, is that it's given Viper, not only can he play his fire spell, but he can kill off the minions. So now, well, Robes, if it gets played now, it's kind of a turn late, I'll call it, but there are 1-drops to play alongside it, so there's still that, positive aspect of it affecting more than just itself at this point.
But yeah, getting back to reality, this is certainly the curve that I liked initially. Hearing you speak, I kind of got on board with what you were saying, but I think it's fairly evenly split either way, right? Like you front load a bit of damage with the Robes play, but the other way around, you are obviously doing the generic thing of getting that damage back quite quickly because you then play minions that are +1/+1 bigger for the next turn or 2 after the fact. So I think most of it probably comes out in the wash. And why did you find that so funny?
Because we're talking about Banana Man, you said split. Okay. That's where I'm at right now. That's what you've done to me after days and days of just saying the words Banana Man. It's ruined my brain, what little of it was left. We do see, though, in Viper's hand, as things are moving forward now, double Mana Biscuit, which can open up incredible turns later on, right? The Gadget Zam with double Mana Biscuit, if it's already been played or whatever, it's going to be huge. So, although it looks like Viper's going to get beaten up very quickly, very soon, mainly down to these robes and these buffs that you can already see on the minions, he can have some strong turns if he gets hold of a Gadget Zam at any moment.
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, this is where the robes come into play to kind of bite the hand that feeds, because it's very much like a fairy dragon effect. It is symmetrical, so you can't put pants on your own minion. You can't just hand of a doll your own thing and push extra damage. So you see that card blacked out in hand, can't do anything with it right now. It's why it's so good that Seiko's not only hit the Bannerman, but the dual kits as well, because the minions are already big, right? Like, they're already big enough. He isn't trying to beat up Viper with 1/1s that can't be targeted. Like, they are pretty reasonable right now. Ooh, indeed, though, double flurry. Do you think it's time, or do you think he can wait? I don't mind one here. Where are we on questline progress? So he's arcane into part 2, so he needs to do frost, fire, and then all 3 again. He can do that very, very efficiently, right, with the flurries, and then using the ice barrier potentially for the next one as well, and then perhaps using Varden in the final flurry to be able to find that turn, because that's going to be the difficult turn, right? The turn where he actually, hold
the phone.
Hold the actual banana phone, Raven.
Yeah, ring, Sharon Blast, they're ready to go. And do you think it's worthwhile now? I think so, right? I think it hurts because it's like, I'm casting so many frost spells in one turn, but who cares? You get to wipe the board, and most importantly, it's an answer to the Robes of Protection. You can see it in Seiko there. Like that, he's running 1 Robes. It was a fantastic opener. Oh, sorry, he's running 2 Robes. It was a great opener for him there, but now suddenly the game is not only evened up, but I would say Viper in favor.
Viper having a very, very good time as we now in Europe get our first instance of the cursed pack mule.
Wait, is he on 3rd quest progression or 2nd?
He is on 3rd.
Okay, good. Okay, right.
He's just going to play Dawn Grasp now, and then he has Auctioneer, Mana Biscuit.
I demand answers.
And he's also 1 flow deep, right? So his Auctioneer is actually pretty good.
And I think he first flames, right?
I mean, it is a 1 mana... I mean, it's extremely unlikely that his deck does not continue to feed him 1 mana or less spells at this point.
And he has 2 Mana Biscuits.
It's true.
It's just that if he doesn't, then it gives 4 Dragon a free.
Wait, you mean second flame, right? The second flame
sorry, apologies. Second flame, yes, apologies. The one that costs mana, yes. I like this a lot. Although it does preemptively buff, the trade can happen anyway, whereas at least now, if the trade happens between 4 Dragon, then, well, at least 4 Dragon's dead, right? It's -177, whereas if he didn't do this, just get a free trade and get the shield buff anyway, so...
It's like don't play the cursed card. So in case anyone didn't watch APAC, there is a rather irritating spectator bug right now where one of the pack mules appears upside down, and if the player plays that upside down pack mule, everything goes to hell. All spectators basically crash, and we lose the broadcast, basically. So let's not do that. Oh, Bolvar knew! Bolvar buffed the right one! Bless Bolvar! Oh, what a boy!
But now, suddenly, because Viper's not under any real pressure, the amazing freeze turn from him earlier on, this Gadget Zan, just sit back and watch, because this is why I actually like this version of the deck. Another one!
Is that the literal perfect first 3 cards to draw? Mana Biscuit into the other flow? Oh my god.
Did you also misorder that?
I'm not. I think he's just going as quickly as possible, yeah.
Okay,
he didn't actually see the flow draw by the time he'd already committed. He'll be way ahead of us in animations already, as players always are in these kind of things.
It's probably just, I think it's just lethal, right? Because he has the mana now for the ignites that are going to be redrawn.
Yes, I would expect so. We shall wait and see.
As long as he can keep casting those ignites, keep finding them. He still can play Refreshing Spring Water as well, which is going to cycle. Yeah, there you go. That's going to get him more. The ignites will keep cycling. There's double cram session. It's just lethal at this point. And this is why I like the deck. Yes, it can be a little bit tougher to get to this point, but once you are, it's almost guaranteed unless you really whiff somehow.
You can see, if you look at, again, just making the point of how far ahead the players get in these points. Yeah. Viper's having a great time. That's not just him swagging on his opponent, killing him one-handed while he has a sip of tea or coffee or whatever that was. That is him being well and truly done, and he is already thinking about what deck he's going to be queuing up next. But, I mean, honestly, so far, that has been 2 nutso draws for Viper in 2 straight-up games. I think, admittedly, in the Zoo, his opponent did have some very strong counterplay. And even then, in the Paladin, right, we were talking about how nutso Seiko's draw was in terms of the anti-mage draw with Paladin. But this turn, that's what changed anything. That generated Shattering Blast was absurd because, again, we talked about it already. Flurry cannot hit already frozen minions, so he had the guaranteed 4 freeze into full clear. And forget about the other 3 minions, they were just a bonus. What that did is kill robes of protection, and that made everything else free for the rest of the game. But honestly, the rest of the game was only like 2 more turns after that point anyway.
Yeah, but that's the big point, right? Without being able to clear those minions off, Viper couldn't have been as free as he was with the rest of his game plan, right? Because he's just going to die at that point. You're very, very terrified when those minions stick. So super unfortunate there for Seiko. The Shattering Blast was absolutely huge for Viper, but that also means now he's 2-0 up in this series. And as just a reminder for the way top 8 works, it is single elimination. So if you win, you move on. If you lose, you're done for the day and done for the weekend as well, with 2 points to your name after the performance so far. So pretty interesting to see how this series is going to play out as Viper moves on to this quest OTK Demon Hunter, and he is running a 1 Ethereal Org Merchant in there as well, and not doesn't appear to be a fan of, say, for example, the triple tradable versions of Demon Hunter that I've seen popping up all over the place.
Yeah, this is something that Derek was talking about quite heavily during APAC, is that when you just play the 2 spell damage minions version, like just the Talented Arcanists, you can struggle with, having to clear boards that use 1 Talented Arcanist, and then you're like, okay, what if the next Talented Arcanist is like bottom 2, bottom 3? That's a real struggle to get that deep in my deck, and I'm going to struggle to OTK without it. And so a lot of people do try and include 1 extra spell damage minion, whether it be the tradable +2, or in this case, the +1. But it's something that players have been messing around with a little bit. Viper clearly just hoping for a little bit of that redundancy. Not to mention, it is also just a pretty decent anti-aggro card. There's a lot of spots where you can just play it out early in the game, snipe a minion down with 1 health, just have a 2/1 remaining on the board that can maybe contest another minion as well. Used to be a card that I really enjoyed playing on 1 in certain matchups in the old version of OTK Demon Hunter, but I'd say it's a little bit less common these days. You're not mandated to play the quest on 1, but obviously you do always have that decision as to whether or not you're going to be playing quest on 1.
Yeah, and if certain predictions come true from a certain ex-world champion that we know, it would also hard counter Peasant as well as an option there. So, we might be seeing more of this in the future. We'll have to see.
I guess we can talk about it now because they're actually at the tournament, right?
Is he even playing it?
I don't think he is, no. But he might have done, right? So I didn't want to act genuinely. Sure. I just didn't want to give away secret Casper tech. But yeah, he came into a call with the casters as we were practicing for this week, and gave us the lists. Like, Hunter Ace is a list pusher. I don't know if you know this about him, but he will always message you. He will always, DM you in Hearthstone, DM you on Twitter, hit you on Discord. He'll say he's got the hot codes for you, and do you want to try them out? And this time, it was Peasant Paladin, which honestly we all laughed at, and then Raven tried to play it, and I think Peasant on average drew 3 cards. On average. Yeah. Like, it was ridiculous.
There was a game where I played it on 1 and I won the game and it was still alive drawing cards. Yes. It was great. Most importantly though, Viper gonna show the respect here. Get rid of that Divine Shield nice and early. Doesn't need to activate the quest quite yet. And honestly, I like this a lot because I feel like if you leave Divine Shields up just for the fun of it, that's when things start to go very, very wrong for you with your opponents, certain draws.
True. Yeah, it's almost lost knowledge at this point, right? Like the big fear of Divine Shields, where the weapon was very common early on, but now some of the lists that are moving towards the stealth packages and secret packages that we were talking about earlier tend to cut the dueled weapon, so that threat of having Divine Shields hanging around is not quite as brutal. But yeah, certainly early on in day 1, first 48 hours of the meta or so, it was of utmost importance to be dealing with every Divine Shield you saw from the Paladin.
Really? It's not too heavy.
Pretty straightforward turn here from Seiko, just getting that Bannerman out and just...
Don't fight it, Raven.
I know, I'm just going to join in now because I've said it too many times. So nice little buff across the hand there. Again, 4-Dragon, a bit of a threat, but honestly, my eyes are drawn to just this Cult Neophyte and even just the medium levels of disruption it can give Demon Hunter.
Ooh! Spicy boy. Viper's got this look on his face of like, where was all, like, can I have taken all of this luck and sprinkled it through last season, like in various places, because it's all coming at once right now. Yeah, it's one of those series of Hearthstone where you're a little bit embarrassed at how hard you're high rolling, right?
But I also think he's I'm not sure if part of it's disappointment because the cards he drew and discounted are actually no combo cards whatsoever.
I think that would be an extremely greedy thing to be thinking with how well.
Maybe he's an extremely greedy boy, Soto. You never know.
All right, fair enough. I think when questline step 1 hits Sigil of Alacrity, you take that, like regardless of what the other cards are, because it just sets you up so cleanly for the second one. Then
yeah, it's purely because I think in some matchups you are very okay just hard cycling through the quest to get Curtis up, and then generally in those matchups you win because the rest of your deck is -2 mana. But I think in this one, Viper's gonna need the tools to push back against Seiko's board presence, or at least expected board presence, right? Because as you mentioned earlier, those Divine Shields are no joke. Not only for the buffs from say Jewel or anything, Jewel Kit or anything like that, but because they're much harder to clear for Demon Hunter, right? Like they don't want to have their removal spells get at least in one wave of them soaked up completely.
That's going to be 2 draws right off the rip. He will almost certainly just be there with
2 double jumps, like anything.
Yeah, but I mean, just with the tradable that he has from the weapon, he was going to get there with Sigil already, right? But yeah, double jumps being hit here is a little bit awkward. We are now starting to get to the point where you might start thinking, okay, this is great. I'm hitting all my card draw, but I would like to see some combo pieces discounted now.
Do you think he should just go acrobatics first then?
See what you get and then make that decision.
Yeah, and then you can decide, right?
You could potentially let this quest tick go because you still have a very solid quest tick next turn if you hold on to the weapon and then still have the tradable 2 double jumps, all that kind of stuff. So I could certainly see that line of thinking, yes.
Now though, actually, with Spectral Sight and acrobatics, I like procking the quest now and just going for a super fast Curtis, right?
Yeah, sure. I like it.
Because he's got a lot of card draw.
End up doing it this way. He gets kind of the overtick on the quest activation this way. Sees 1 extra card that he's able to discount. Still doesn't hit anything fantastic, but a cheap Immolation Aura will never go amiss in this matchup. Immolation Aura, the best tool, I would say, dealing with Paladin boards. Much, much better than Fellscreen Blast because of those Divine Shields that Raven was talking about earlier.
Hey, though, looks like Seiko can weave in Cult Neophyte and Goody 2 shields this turn if he wants to keep it clean. There are other things he could do, and I think he was considering it, like Cult Neophyte, like Conviction and Night of Anointment after the fact or something like that. But I think just playing a decent attack Divine Shield, the Cult Neophyte to get in the way of the next turn, and then try and set up for a Battleground Battlemaster Conviction the turn after.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about as much protection as you can give it, right? A Divine Shield minion and a Cult Neophyte in order to protect a 3-minion board. You'd be taking that most of the time against Demon Hunter, I would say.
I have little time.
And especially, we can see that Viper's not really reduced the best cards in the world. Seiko does not know that. The quest is proc twice. That's like, -1 twice in certain cards in his hand. Like, it's a little bit scary, but he's going to go for the additional minions instead. I'm a little bit surprised at this outside of or instead of playing the Goody 2 shields.
Yeah, same. I think maybe he has a little bit of fear of the Divine Shield running into the weapon anyway, so if there's an Immolation Aura, the Goody 2 Shields just doesn't really achieve anything, but, I'm just kind of defending it for the sake of defending it. I still would have favoured that line of play, I think.
Yeah, I guess there's a world in which, now he can maybe double Conviction instead, but surely double Conviction kind of works the same as Battlemaster Conviction in a roundabout way, right? So
it just doesn't develop a 5/5 as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, generally seems worse.
Right, for Viper, he does have that Immolation Aura. But no spell damage to help out. Just nothing really to help out and no mana to do anything about it. So Do you think he's going to have to just be happy with a I-beam and maybe a hero power trade into the Knight?
He can play everything from the far right? Like he could play Sigil, Immolation Aura, I-beam would still cost 1 because I-beam's card text overrules everything else.
Yeah.
Which would clear everything except the 2/6, I believe. Yeah, you can see it there demonstrated as he discovers an I-beam and it ends up costing 1. Oh.
Scary.
It is scary. It also doesn't attack here. There's a cursed pack mule comes into hand.
Oh no.
If this split lands perfectly, that would be, what, 10, 20, 21 this time?
Yeah.
So no lethal outs.
And for that reason, I actually really like 4-Dragon here. A big Divine Shield minion. So not only is it awkward because the shield, but the health's pretty high. You've just seen not an AoE from your opponent, so there was no Moarg Immolation Aura coming down that turn. There was nothing like that going on, so it's reasonable to expect that at least this 4-Dragon's going to live.
I think that Moarg might have just locked up this game and this series for Viper. That's the missing ingredient he's needed all this whole time. 0 mana philosophy, 1 mana philosophy, duplicating 1 mana Moargs already. With Immo, I-beam, and Fell Scream in his hand, that is so much clearing power. And he should be able to split this up very nicely to be able to take care of this board and leave himself with good lethal outs from Il'gynoth top decks as well. Only question is whether he chooses to prioritize quest completion as well, which I don't think he has so much mana to spare. I don't think there's any real reason not to start with cycling the Persistent Peddler.
Pleasure doing business.
Yeah, because it also might drastically change the turn, right?
That's right, yeah. Can then, of course, draw it back with the Tusk Pisser if he would really like to.
Yeah, it's an interesting point here about Viper is he is only running that single tradable, right? He's not even running the snake.
That's right, yep. How much he's committing here? I'm expecting at least 1 Moarg. He's going to drop it down with the I-beam, it looks like, preserve everything else. Yeah, okay.
Got to feel pretty safe with just a Blademaster Samuro on the board, right, as a 2/4. Was that Battlemaster got the buff from 4-Dragon, I believe?
Yep, that's an 11/11 now. Even with double conviction now, that's only 16 being pushed this turn.
And you can see throughout this whole game, Viper's done just enough to not be dead to what you expect to be dead to, right? The Battlemaster conviction turns. And each turn, it's been just enough. Like last turn we saw, it was actually 21 if everything landed perfectly, which, well, it wasn't 25 or whatever he was at, right? So fantastic. Carry on with the game. So we're really
Paladin
impressive play here.
Paladin is the one class that tends to not be able to Flame Tongue Totem their Battlemaster turns, right? Like Rogue can quite often like backstab or SI Extortion their own minions, right? To remove one out the way and then give the next one Wind Fury as well. Warlock is phenomenal at it. If Warlock has multiple minions on board in the list that plays Lotheb, they can very, very easily just play the Wind Fury and then give every single minion on their board Wind Fury 1 by 1 by shooting Drain Souls and Mortal Coils and everything else at their own minions.
Yeah, in Paladin, the best you can normally do is go face, then trade it away into something if you can, and then use the next minion to go face twice, or do the same, and so on. But you are right, there are no sort of manual ways to mess with the board. So, Seiko set up another threatening board here for Viper to consider and deal with. He does now know Seiko's got that information that there are 2 1-mana Moargs in hand.
That's right.
Demons.
He does also commit 1 conviction as well, which I think he'll be chalking up as a small loss right now because it does dramatically decrease the level of burst that he has from hand. Viper here might just be looking to unlock the Spectral Sight because he's going to need to get some card draw going here. It's whether or not he feels like the Acrobatics potential is going to be enough card draw for him this game.
Yeah, would you start with Acrobatics? Because he can still do the Spectral afterwards, right? If he needs to.
Starting with Fell Scream, I do find unusual. I was thinking you start with Moarg Fell Scream and then go for the Spectral Sight. He's actually saving the 1 mana on the Moarg here. There you go. Does pick up that replacement Fell Scream very, very nicely. And now that is the juice hanging around in hand. He has a lot to do in the remainder of this turn, though. Looks like he's going to just rip the acrobatics, but that is the clean 36 in hand now. Forget about Kurt Russell. He is not relevant. That is everything lined up that Viper could possibly need.
Not yet, though, right? He's a turn away.
He is a turn away. You're absolutely right.
So he's got one whole additional turn to not die, and he's already used that other fell screen blast, so this one he needs, or at least in 99% of cases he needs, I guess. So, yeah.
Actually, he might find himself in a spot of bother now, because there's a ton of damage about to come through here.
Strike! Then strike harder.
This might end up in a position where Viper has to just play tempo Moargs instead.
Put it back!
No! Play the right one! Play the... Oh. Okay, we need a PSA to all of our players to, if they are only playing one pack mule, play the one on the right. Because they have now... Seiko's now just broken everything. Not that it's his fault. Obviously, the client should do this. It should not do this, and I'm not blaming Seiko for it.
So just to give you a reminder and update, if there's a stupid bug with the pack mule, that if you play the wrong one or the left one, there we go. Fantastic.
Hey.
Thank you, spectators in production, for that. A very quick fix on that. But yeah, if you play it, kind of just breaks spectators for some unknown reason. So we're sorry about the slight delay, but you can see what happened. Seiko did the double Wind Fury attack to push Viper all the way down to 7, played the mule as some level of defense and extra potential minion to go for that Wind Fury, and Viper now, as we mentioned, doesn't have lethal. With this turn, he has all the tools, but none of them, so outside the Moargs, I guess, are actually reduced, so he just can't fit them in. The Talented Arcanist and the Il'gynoth, probably most notably, very expensive right now.
Yeah, so this is the line I see, but it's still a little bit awkward. The problem that he's got here is that he doesn't even set up a reliable 2-turn. Like, normally in situations like this where you're tapped out, you will look to do your Il'gynoth turn anyway and just be like the 6 damage short or whatever that you are, but just leave the board behind afterwards, right? Which he could have done, except he can't because he needs to use his spell damage offensively. He needs to use it to remove the Divine Shield, which means he's lacking spell damage on his side of the board. So he's had to go for the full heal instead. Hope this sticks and then use the remainder of his deck to get out of this. But I think he's now down both Fell Screams, both I-Beams, right?
Yeah, I believe so. My tracker's a bit bugged, if I'm honest.
Ignore it.
It doesn't work. It doesn't like tradable.
Sigil of Alacrity at the best of times throws absolute havoc to it. Oh, that was his out. Yeah, okay, that was his out. Viper was looking for I-Beam from the Illidari studies, has not found it now, and I think now he's just waiting to die, unless he can win this game with a 7-7. 7-7 and a 4-6, which is essentially what Il'gynoth is.
Could take Curtis as well, which isn't...
That's true.
Isn't to be ignored, like, especially if it's Outcast. It's a good amount of damage.
He can play that alongside the 7-7 as well.
It'll hit.
Just the two Curtises just Spider-Man memeing at each other. Yeah, okay, good.
No, it's just Kurt Russell and his stun double. That's all.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
And also as well, due to positioning, arguably he's hitting like the 2 most important minions with this, right? So he's getting kind of the immune damage there on the roam. Production, get ready for another spectator swap because there's another mule in hand. Yeah, 7-7 isn't to be ignored. Oh, he's not going to play it? He's going to play Il'gynoth instead.
He's upset about something there. I don't personally see what it is. He shook his head immediately as he dropped the Kurtrus, but if he missed something, I'm missing the same thing. I don't see what the alternate plan was, but he did immediately play the Kurtrus and then shake his head very violently like he was upset with the play that he just made.
Yeah, I can't work it out either. This just looked like a choice between Il'gynoth or Kurtrus as a general turn. A little bit surprised. Rome is going to stick around. I don't think Viper cares if Seiko has all the cards. Might actually hope he keeps them so that he can fatigue himself, and that's how Viper wins. We'll see. Good way to play around the second neophyte, though. Not going to reduce my or increase my spells if I don't have any.
It's true.
No Divine Shield, procs and no buffs on this first blade, so it's not going to be able to have rush at the moment, I believe. It's still 3 attack.
I have little time.
Yeah, green border a dead giveaway, but also it just came into hand this turn, so all seems well.
Switch! Yep. Again, the unfortunate mule bug, we will keep up with it. We can kind of see what Seiko's doing, and it's not really too much of a surprise anyway. He's just filling up the board best he can to be able to just fight against this very weird outcome of this game, which is a OTK Demon Hunter with a full board of minions trying to battle a Paladin. It's something I've not, I think, ever seen.
Argent Squire that is in play is now going to be a big deal as well, because that will buff the First Blade of Rin with the Prismatic Jewel Kit, which means that he'll get an additional rush minion on the next turn. Like, fast actions are something that Paladin is lacking in, right? That's why this board push from Viper did actually have a chance of working, because Paladin just doesn't really answer very well from off-board. So now actually having this 4-6 rush next turn after the Divine Shield is used is actually going to be a very, very big deal.
Yeah, especially it's only really Samuro, right, that you've got to be scared of from Paladin, and that's also already been played out, so nothing to worry about from Viper. Gonna take down the roam. I imagine just make as many value trades as possible is the plan right now for Viper. Just try and keep this board incredibly wide, as we mentioned, doesn't have to be afraid of Samuro, and I'm not sure how we've got here, Sol, but I'm a little bit afraid for Seiko at this point.
It is getting spooky for sure. System Peddler has reached the point where he's just on the board. That's how you know things are desperate. I'd love to know what I've missed, because I've clearly missed something. Viper is livid at himself this game, the way he's played the last couple of turns. Please do let me know.
The light protects me.
Yeah, it's just not enough, right? Yeah, it's just not enough. He can only kill one minion, only one rush minion there to interact with the board. No taunts, there was no righteous protector or anything to really be frustrating for Viper to try and punch through. And yeah, believe it or not, Viper won that one. I know it doesn't look like it, but I promise you it's true. A 3-0 win for Viper. Huge congratulations. A great way to kick off the day. And, maybe not a smooth victory based on Viper's reactions, but a strong one to move through to top 4 for tomorrow.
Yeah, and putting the doubters to rest, me chief amongst them. I wasn't a huge fan of his lineup coming into it, but he is going to be our first player going through to Sunday, going through to top 4, and he's doing it off the back of a very unconventional lineup overall.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really enjoying about the meta right now, is because it feels like there's so many versions of even just archetypes in themselves that there's a lot to mess around with and a lot of wiggle room to slightly alter the deck list itself, but that small alteration will make a big impact on certain matchups. Sol, by all means, inform us, what did we miss?
I saw it on the replay, yes. I think the plan was he could have killed the other 2 minions first, and then Kurtrus would have just attacked the Cornelius twice, clearing it. So then denying any further card draw, which I think is what he was looking at instead.
And retain the minions, right? Because there would have been value trades on the other 2, as opposed to dying to roam. That makes
That's my theory as to what he saw that was better than what he did, because that is certainly arguably better than what he did.
Yeah, but another great win there for Viper, and a great start to the season as well, already going into top 4. As we mentioned, these points, every win you get at this point, just start stacking up those point totals already for week 1. So looking good for him. Next up, of course, we are going to have Floki versus Jarla. And what a match for us to have on stream here. First time we're going to have Floki on stream for Grandmasters, and he is going to be going up against arguably just one of the best, if not the best performer in Grandmasters as a whole, or most consistent at least, in the form of Jarla. So really looking forward to this one, Sal.